Okay, let's start. We have lots of stuff left and we have very short time. So I'll try to cover whatever maximum I can. Okay, let's get started with the videos. So in this, we'll first learn that how to capture a video from the camera. So more specifically, like in my laptop, the camera is there. Okay, so through that camera, I will try to capture some whatever is the scene it is seeing, and I will see how to work with that. And if there is a video file, then how to play that, or how to save a video which we captured through the camera into a file. These things we'll see, right? Okay, so for that, I'm taking you to a script over here. OpenCV makes your life so easy. If you think of writing a program in other languages to capture the things from the camera, read it and display it and all those, then how much line of code you need to write? But your life is so easy when you go with Python OpenCV. Okay, so let's say first we'll learn how to capture a live stream using a camera on your laptop. Okay, so for this I'm importing first the OpenCV CV to SCV. After that I'm calling a method called video capture, and here I am specifying 0 for the camera, the default camera that is there in the laptop, that for that. So basically I am telling that the capture that stream over here. So we are creating a video capture object whose name I am giving cap over here. And if it has successfully done, we check. If it is not done, then we give some message that cannot open the camera, right? And we exit. If we are successful, then we'll go further. Okay. So you see there is a loop over here, while true, that is an infinite loop. While true is infinite, while true, which will always be true. What we want to know and what we want to do after that, whatever the stream we are capturing through our camera, we want to read it frame by frame. So for that, there is a method called read method, right, on the captured video object. Okay, so cap.read, we are getting the frame, right? It gives the return value also, right? If that is not there, then the return, we can check the return value, right? If not written, then in that case, we can use the message that can't receive the frame. Okay, some problem is there in receiving the frame. Okay, in the simplest way, whatever frame we are capturing, that frame we are displaying through IM show, right? And this loop will go till the user presses Q over here, right? So wait key one is basically it will wait for 1 millisecond, and then it will go for the next iteration of the loop. Okay, when Q is pressed at that time, it will come out. It will come out. Okay, and then we release the video capture, and we destroy all the windows over here. Okay, yeah. So if I run this, let's see. Oh, oh, okay. I think this. Yeah, the camera, it is busy with this video conferencing, right? What we are doing for this, it is busy with that, so we are not able to do that part over here because the camera is already with that. Okay, leave it. We will work with a file. Okay, so let's say we have a video in a file. We have video in a file. Okay, we'll be working with that. So let's say I have got a video trees.mp4 in a file. So it is the exactly almost same thing. Video capture, instead of doing from the camera, we are doing it from the file. Okay, so I'm taking you to this now. Okay, so I am capturing basically a video file over there. So then we are checking if it is not open, then we give a message over there, right? And if it is open, then we go in a while loop, and we read the frame by frame that file, right? So we read it, and if the return value is true, in that case we display it, right? And then we wait for a key to be pressed by the user. If that key is Q, then we come out. Otherwise, we keep displaying this, right, till the frames are coming one after another. Okay, so I will run this. See, it started playing this file, which is there. This is trees.mp4 file. What it is doing, it captured it. Then after that, in the while loop, it started reading frame by frame, right? And every frame it is displaying, right? So all the movements frame by frame that we saw, and it came out when of the when the video finished. Okay, so easy it is. See how many line of code is there to access to a video or to access a. So, yeah, I'm sorry that because of this we could not show that. Otherwise, if you try this through your laptop while you are not in a conferencing, and you do this program, the first one which I wanted to show, then whatever your face the camera is seeing, the same thing you will be seeing over there. The video will get captured over there. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's say this, what we did now, let's say we want to change our this colored images, we want to change this video to the gray video. Okay, so the same thing I'm doing, I'm capturing this trees.mp4 over here. Okay, I'm opening it, then I'm reading the frame, and every frame what I'm doing is I'm converting. So this the color space conversion is there. This CVT color function, so you can convert it to a different kind of color. So we want to convert to gray, right? So we are specifying this color BGR to gray. Okay. So the frame we are converting to the gray, and that we are displaying it over here. Okay. Then after the same thing we are doing over here. Okay. Let me run this for you. So the same video, now it is converted to the gray color. The colored frames we are converting to the gray frame, and we are displaying it, right? Yeah. If you want to save it, then in that case, for that, there is this, in order to save, basically what is required is we need to define a codec and a video writer we need to create. We need to create a video writer for that. And for that, we need to specify the codec also. So basically 4-character code for decoding of the video needs to be created. So for that, there is a method called video writer underscore 4cc. And on Windows, there are definite codes for this. So this DIVX, this we need to take from the documentation. So we are creating this for a CC, the codec. And while creating the writer, we need to specify this codec. Then the output file name. So output.avi, let's say, is my output file name. Then how many frames per second I want to write. Okay. Then what is my frame? Will be my frame size. All these I need to specify over there. Okay. So I am creating a video writer that is out. Okay. And that video writer basically it will have all the, so when we are getting the frame, so we are writing to the, we are calling on that video writer, we are calling the method write on that, and we are passing the frame which we want to write to it. So this frame will go to this. So basically this program was to capture the video from the camera and to write it into a file, but since we won't be able to capture the camera because our camera is already busy with something else, so here we won't be able to say. But what we have to learn over here is the process of saving a video is very easy. You need to create a 4cc codec. You need to create a video writer. Then on the video writer, you need to call the method write over there and you pass the frame. Then it will go over there. Right? While creating the video writer, you are specifying the output file name. You are specifying the codec. You are specifying how many frames per second you want to write to it. And then you have to specify what will be the dimensions of the your frame that you have to specify. So it will save it over there. Okay. So this way, the basic video handling you can do. Okay. Now I move quickly to the next topic. That is basically the GUI drawing on this. Okay. So for this, let's say, yeah, what we'll do is we'll start from a very basic drawing. So what we are doing is, let's say I created 5 by 12 by 5 by 12 an image, right? Black colored image. Okay. And this I'm displaying it over here. A black colored image 5 by 12 by 5 by 12. Right. This is my drawing image. It is black colored. Okay. Yeah. Now what I'm doing is I'm drawing a line on this. So I'm calling the method CV line on that. Okay. The line, the both the endpoints I'm specifying the color, thickness, etc. I'm specifying. Here we are not concentrating on the parameters. For that you can well refer the documentation just to show that how easy it is to draw a line over here. So I'm drawing a line over here, okay, with blue color, and we are executing it, right? And this drawing, this line I'm drawing on the image itself, the image what we created. So the first parameter is image. On the same image, we are drawing the line over here, right? So when we draw the line, see, we see this diagonal line. These two basically coordinates we specified for. Okay. If I want to draw a rectangle with certain corners and the values, right, I can draw that also, right? It's a color I have specified green over here and the thickness 3, okay, for this. So if we see on the same image, what is currently with us, on at the top of the same image, basically we are drawing the rectangle over here. Okay, if we want to draw the circle by specifying its a parameter on the same image, so basically the circle is drawn. Okay, right, it is a filled circle. When you specify the last parameter -1 over there, it fills it with whatever color you specify over there. Okay, then after that, okay, let's say an eclipse, half eclipse we want over there. So 180° we are specifying, and with other parameters. Okay, if we do this, so we are getting this half eclipse also. Okay, then after that, a polygon also. So for polygon, we specify the points which we want to join. So some 4 points are specified over there to be joined, and polylines we are creating over here, which is this small polygon over there. Okay, then after that, finally, let's say some text also we want to write on that. So using the put text, we are working on that. With the open CV text, we put it. So the GUI drawing, it is very, very easy using this OpenCV. And after that, let's say you want to store this, save this drawing. So you can do I am right, and you can store it in drawing.png. Okay. So we saved it, right? If you go there and you can see that there is a file called drawing.png somewhere. It will be, yeah, this drawing.png is there. Okay. So in this file, we save this. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then the next thing what we'll see is a drawing we did after that. Okay. Changing the color space. Okay. In this again, I'm very sorry that again the camera is involved. So what we were reading from the camera, it was a very interesting exercise. Basically, we were reading from the camera. We were changing the color space to only to capture the blue objects, and then I wanted to show you some blue object, blue pen or something, so that it will capture that and it will show that in the range. but I'm sorry that I won't be able to do this because I can.
Sir, is it possible to stop your video and then only taking the speakers and can present it? I mean, you are not visible to us. Only your voice will
Okay,
be visible.
okay. Yeah,
You
let me see. Let me see that. Yeah.
yes,
Okay, let me do that. Okay, fine. Thank you, sir.
yes.
Okay, so uh, my my video has stopped. Okay,
Yes,
so
yes, sir.
after this, let me first try that one, the first one itself, that which we were uh, trying to do this. Okay, yeah, yes. Are you seeing the camera is capturing now the frame? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
Yes, sir.
basically,
We
see
could see the
this.
camera capturing you.
Camera is capturing my face, right? So
Yes,
this is
sir. Yes,
basically
sir.
this frame by frame, it is getting displayed, right?
Yes,
So basically, it
correct.
is capturing and it is showing whatever is there in front of the camera, that is coming over there, right? Whatever object I show over there or anything that is appearing over there. So basically, this is the video, right? Okay. So this was the demonstration for this part. Okay. Okay, let me kill this. Okay, QL. So, yeah. Okay. Now, saving also we'll see. Let's say, and the third part, we want to save this, right? We want to save whatever we are capturing in the camera. Okay. So for that, we created a video writer, right? Out, and on that we were writing the this frame. Before writing the frame, I was flipping the frame. I was through cv.flip. I was flipping the frame. So basically, I want the ulta, the upside down, right? The frame, and that I want to save in which file? I have given the name output.avi file. Okay. In this, I want to save this. Okay. So if I run this, okay, then yeah, see, it is every frame. It is flipping it, and that we are also writing in that file, right? That we are writing in the file over there. Okay, so now I'm quitting by pressing Q, and after that we'll check our that what is the name of the file? Output.avi. Okay, so I will take you to output.avi file. Oh, where is output.avi file? Yeah, this output.ovi file. Okay, this I'm double clicking. See, this is the same thing what I did now, right? It captured it. So your video got captured. You could save your video, right? With just few lines of code, you can create capture the video, and you could store it also in whatever form you want to. Okay, fine. So I'm killing this. Yeah, hope this was interesting for you. Yeah, I'm sorry that did not come in my mind that I should off my video and do the things. Okay, let's proceed. Okay. Yeah, so I'm taking you to this changing the color space. Changing the color space. Okay, what we are doing this, it is a very similar program that I am capturing a video by calling the video capture. Okay, the camera. Okay, then I am reading the frame. Now what I want is, I want to change the color space to HSV. HSV, we need to read some more about this. It is saturation value format is there. So it is a different kind of coloring format. So in that, we are changing our this RGB to HSV format. In that, what we can do is, we can specify some color range, and we can mask it, so to capture the objects in that range. So I'm specifying some lower blue intensities. I'm specifying 110, 50, 50 something, and some higher blue intensities I'm specifying for blue color intensities. Some I'm specifying over there. Okay. Then after that, what we are doing is, we are creating a mask so that it will capture the things in this range. Okay. So it takes our this HSV video. We our frame we converted to HSV. Our frame we converted to HSV, so that our frame in HSV formatted text. Then we specify these two color ranges over there. So it creates the masks for this, and that mask we use for bitwise ANDing it. So let's say when we see here the blue color, right? So object with the blue color. So for that, whatever is the dimension of that object, for that it creates the mask. And when we do the bitwise ANDing from the frame, basically from the frame, we see the things only for which the mask, the corresponding to the mask. Okay, over there. So when then we show the frame HSV original frame, then HSV converted frame, then the mask, and the final result after we do the bitwise ANDing of the frame and the mask. Okay, this we are doing. Okay, so let me run this. Okay, so let me set it. This is the original frame, and this is the HSV. After the top left is the original frame. Okay, and this is the after we do the color space conversion HSV. Okay, then this one is the mask. So see this bluish kind of thing, whatever is there. I think my spec and something on my cap, something. So I'll just take out my cap. Okay, and some bluish thing that for that it is there, and it's so that thing, that mask corresponding to that, some blue kind of color you see. So I am taking now a blue object in front of this blue object. See the blue object is there. So for that, you see the mask is getting created, and for in the lower left, the mask is there, and the lower right, actually the object's color is seen. Okay, let me take the blue pen, something blue pen. See some blue pen. So for that, whatever is the blue thing out of that you are seeing over there. Okay. So such interesting things you can do very easily using OpenCV by changing the color space and by masking based on the colors, and then doing the bitwise operations and getting the things what you require. So all this for the object detection and all such things can be used. Okay. So I'm just coming out of it. I don't know what it is. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So hope this was helpful to you. Okay. Now next is changing the color space, geometric transformation. I think I will leave this part. Geometric transformation, we already covered this, the resizing and the rotating and all those. Some more shifting is also there, but I think that you can do. More important things I'll take basically. After that, image thresholding is there. Okay, I will quickly show this thresholding. Yeah, what is thresholding? Basically, you have an image. Okay, let's say you specify a threshold pixel value. Let's say 127 is the pixel threshold value. So what it checks in that image is that if a pixel has a value below that, and if your thresholding is binary thresholding, then below 127 it makes it 0, and if it is above 127 it makes it 255. Threshold binary does the opposite way. Then similarly, there are other thresholding schemes also, which we can read from the documentation. The different kinds of thresholding, they are done over there. So I will just execute it and show you the result of the thresholding. Okay. So yeah, I am taking an image called gradient.png. That image also I'll show. After that, I am performing different kinds of thresholding, threshold 1 to 5 over there, using various binary inverse, truncated, then to 0 inverse kind of thresholding. Okay, details we can see in the documentation. Then we are displaying it through the matplotlib. So we are creating a plot. Okay, so various images and their titles. Okay, so basically our plot is 2x3 plot. Okay, in that we are displaying the thresholded images after thresholding. Okay, so if I ran it, right, so it is in the plot. So if you see on the spider on the right hand side, there is a tab plot. So if we go to this, so see, this is the original image. If you apply the binary thresholding, you get something like this. If you apply the binary inverse, then like this, truncated 2-0 and 2-0 inverse, right? So the details of the other thresholding we need to see from the documentation. I'm just demonstrating that how using the thresholding you can change the pixel. You can perform the thresholding. Okay. Then yeah, one thing with this global kind of thresholding is this: the same threshold, it is being used for all the pixel in the images. So for all the pixel in the image, the threshold is same. But if you use the adaptive thresholding, in that case, not the same threshold is used for all. Rather, basically, it uses a window or neighboring pixels. It takes the neighboring pixel, and if you are using adaptive threshold mean C, then it takes the mean of the neighborhood, mean pixel in the mean average of the pixels in the neighborhood minus some constant that it uses for the thresholding, and it does it. Similarly, if you take it adaptive threshold Gaussian, then in that case, it takes the Gaussian weighted sum minus some constant that it takes for the threshold for each pixel based on its neighborhood, and it performs the thresholding. So if I'm doing this, so the first thing we are doing is the binary thresholding, then adaptive threshold mean, then adaptive threshold Gaussian. Three kinds of thresholdings we are doing for an image. So I'm showing you the output after doing it. See, the code is so small code, right? You just read the code and you do some smoothing, thresholding, and you display using the matplotlib. Okay, so see, this is the original image over here. If I go for this binary thresholding, see, it is making black and white like this over here, right? Not very suitable over here. The global 127 is being used for the threshold over here. But this adaptive mean thresholding and adaptive Gaussian thresholding, basically they are taking the neighborhood area, and from the neighborhood area, they are calculating what is the threshold, and based on that they are doing. And see, these using these two thresholding, the image is much more clearer than the original one, right? Okay, so we move from the thresholding. Okay, after that it is after thresholding, smoothing or blurring. This also I'll go ahead quickly. Blurring and smoothing, basically there are various methods. Averaging is there, then blurring, and then median blurring is there, and Gaussian blurring is there. So for all these, separate methods are there. Okay, let's say there is a method blur, okay, which performs the averaging. Okay, then for Gaussian blurring, there is a method Gaussian blur. Okay, for this median blurring, there's a median blur. Then after that, there's something called bilateral filtering for smoothing or blurring. It is this a bilateral filter function is there, right? So instead of going in more detail of it, because we have to do many more things over there. So I'm just showing you the output. Okay, I'm just using blur over here, and the output, it is again the plot. Yes, see, this is the original image, and some kind of smoothing it is doing. Yeah, not very clear, but still, if you see the here this OpenCV, that the boundaries and all those, at least some smoothing we can see over there. If we do the same, I'm going for this Gaussian blur. In the Gaussian blur, yeah, the again, yeah, some kind of smoothing it is doing over here. Okay. Uh, So the difference, the Gaussian blur, right? The calculation of the threshold, that is different in this, right? Then after that, okay, let's say I go for median blur. Okay, in this my input image has the noise. Okay, so median blur, it is able to remove the noises. So if I run this, the input and output I will show to you. See, this original is this one, and after applying for the median blur, it is this. Okay, yeah, okay, then yeah, then the finally this one on bilateral. Okay, bilateral filter. In this, if you see the original image, and sorry, I forgot to change the title. This title is basically, it should be bilateral. Here I forgot a copy paste. I think this copy paste, I should have written over here the bilateral filter. Okay, so some kind of smoothing you can see over there. So the point over here is, there are plenty of methods for smoothing and blurring provided by OpenCV, which we can use whatever suits best for our application at hand. Okay, so now I'm going to the next, yeah, morphological transformations in this. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so okay, we'll be seeing basically the four things. Erosion. Okay, what is erosion? The basic idea of erosion is just like soil erosion. So basically, what we do erosion for is that it erodes away the boundaries of the boundary of the foreground object. How does it perform the erosion? So it uses a kernel for this. It uses a kernel for this, and what it does is, let's say for a pixel, a window is put over there, a kernel is put, kernel window is put in the, to all the neighboring pixel, this and all the neighboring pixels. If all the pixels have the intensity 1, then in that case only that central pixel will get the value 1. Otherwise, if any of the pixel in the neighborhood has the intensity not 1, then in that case it will be made to 0. So that way we are eroding it. So your thing will become little bit thin. Okay, so this is basically the erosion. And the next is dilation, that is opposite of it. In dilation, again, we take a pixel, we take the neighborhood. If any of the pixel in the neighborhood, it has the intensity 1, then this will be changed to the intensity 1. So it increases our the object area. It increases. So dilation. Okay. Then after that, opening is there. Opening is basically erosion followed by dilation. Erosion followed by dilation is opening, and closing is the opposite way. It is dilation followed by the erosion. Okay, so that way these various morphological operations are there. So I'll just run it and show you the output of it. Okay, this is it will be clear from this, I hope so. So you see, this is our original image, this J. Okay, when we perform the erosion, okay, so you see the boundary pixels, many boundary pixels. When we saw the neighborhood pixels, they were black, right? They were not white, some of them. So it was made black, right? So as a result of this, finally we are getting this J, which is little bit more eroded J, right? It is thinner than this. Okay, so this is erosion. Okay, now let's see the dilation, which is opposite of it. In the neighboring pixels, if anything is 1, then it is converted to 1. Okay, so see, this was the original J and this is the dilated J, right? So it has become thick, right? It is many means that from the background also the things were made white over here. This is basically the dilation. Now, opening is just another name for erosion followed by dilation. It is useful in removing the noise, right? So let's see this also. So we had this original image which has the noises. Okay, so we perform the erosion and dilation, right? So these holes, they will go over there because it's a surrounding thing is not white, right? So because of this will be these noises will go from here. Okay, so this we perform erosion, then we perform dilation. So the result is this. Okay, the result is this. When we perform the erosion, these noises go, right? And then we perform the dilation. Okay, after that, the closing. It is dilation followed by erosion. So if there are noises or the holes on the J itself, then that will go through this. So let's say this J, it is having this. So we perform dilation first, right? So because of the dilation, surrounding to some black spot, if there is some white spot, it will become white. So these black things, black dots, they will go, right? Then after that, we perform so it has become this, right? Then okay, let's there are more things also over there which we can see in the documentation. So all this, they are the morphological transformations. Okay, then the next after that, oh yeah, age detection. Okay, so for age detection, the algorithms which you might be studying in image processing, right? I have not studied much image processing, but let's say there is some algorithm, canny age detection in image processing, right? So whatever you have understood about this, and it does so many things in that. It does the noise reduction. Then after that, finding the intensity gradient of the image. Then non-maximum things are the suppressed, and then after that some kind of thresholding is applied, and so through that it does the canny age detection. Okay, so but for you it's so easy. What you have done is you just read an object over here, that same Macy's photo object, and you just applied the canny age detection function, and what you have specified is just a range of the pixel intensity, 100 to 200, let's say you have specified over there, and you are getting the ages over here. So simple. Your life is so simple. Reading the image, two-line code. It is two-line code, right? Reading the image and applying the age detection algorithm. So you are getting this ages. Now, whatever all these things are there, these are plotting, right? We are plotting original image. We are plotting, and we are plotting the age of the image. We are plotting, and these are the initial importing, right? Import statements. So basically, this is two-line code is there for the age detection. Okay. So if I do this, and if I run it for you, what happened? Not happy with me. Escape something. Oh yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. I was expecting it should pop up, some window will pop up, but actually we are plotting it, right? So it will go into the plot. So I need to take you. I should take you into the plot. Yeah. So it plotted it for me. Yeah. See, this is the original image, right? We read it. Okay. Yeah. It is the gray, right? Yeah. Messi, this gray. For this, we need a gray image. So we took the gray image, and this canny age detection, it has done this age detection for you, right? So OpenCV makes your life so easy for your image processing tasks. Okay. So this age detection. Okay. Then after that, next will be This histogram. Okay, histogram. Yeah. Rather, I'll go for image segmentation. I have half an hour only, right, with me. So I'll go for a histogram. I think quite frequently we see. So image segmentation. Okay. So in this image segmentation, okay. Again, see the details of the algorithm that we are not how to use them, the functions that we are concentrating on. So here basically the image segmentation with watershed algorithm with the markers that we are using. So we'll see an example, okay, in which we'll be applying a distance transform along with the watershed segment algorithm to segment the mutually touching objects. So what are our mutually touching objects? We consider the coin images. So we have the coin images and these coins, they are touching each other. Even if you threshold it, it will still be touching. Okay. So what we do is we start with finding an approximate estimate of the coins. And for that, we are using some Otsu binarization functions for this. Okay. So I'll take you the step by step. Okay. So first thing, okay, I have written a display function because every time I need, I am show wait key and destroy this display function. And I'm reading my input image coins. Okay, that I will show you first. So what we are doing is we are performing the image segmentation. This is my input image coins. Okay. Yeah. Now I am first converting it to the grayscale. Okay. And after that, I am applying this thresholding, this Otsu thresholding we are applying to get in order to get the approximate estimate of the coins, we are applying this Otsu's thresholding. Okay. After converting it to the gray. Okay. So I am converting to the gray, then after that I am applying. So two things we are doing over here. First, we converted it to the gray. Okay. After that, we applied this Otsu thresholding. So we are getting the approximation of the coins over here. Okay. So far good. Okay. Then after that, what we are doing is, okay, we are performing the noise removal by performing the opening operation. We saw that morphological operation in that the opening. So for morphology EX, I'm applying this CV dot morph open, right? Okay. And for opening a kernel, we are using that is 3x3 kernel of ones that we are creating over here. Okay. And 2 times this we are repeating over there. So iterations 2. Okay. So I'm applying the opening on it to remove the noise. To remove the noise, opening I am applying and then we are displaying. Okay, so maybe some background, this whites in the background might have got removed because of this opening. Okay. Now we want to know the Schur background. Schur background. So in order to know the Schur background, what we are doing is we are applying dilation. Dilation we are applying on the opening output. Okay. And 3 times this we are doing in order to get the Schur background. Okay. So what dilation does is it increases your foreground, right? It increases your object boundaries so that whatever is left, that will be Schur background. Okay. So so this whatever is black, that is the blacks, they are the Schur background over here. By applying the dilation, we are doing this. Okay. Then after that, we want to get the Schur foreground. Schur foreground. So for that, we are doing some distance transformation on the opening output. Okay, by using the L2 norm distancing. Okay, and after that, we are performing the thresholding, and for that, whatever the distance transform is giving us the image, it's a maximum 0.7 we are taking at the threshold and we are doing this. So basically this function, we are applying the distance transform. Okay, then the maximum pixels 0.7 we are taking for thresholding, and then we are this we are doing in order to get the sure foreground thing. So what we are getting white things, they are the sure foreground. They are, yeah, they are sure. Yes, it is sure foreground. It is coming sure foreground, right? Now, oh no, sorry. So this short foreground is this. We displayed two things, right? The output of the transform. So what we saw earlier was the distance transform output, and this one is the sure foreground. This is the sure foreground, the coins sure foreground part. Okay. Now after that, I'm some data type conversion for the sure foreground I'm doing, and we are subtracting the sure background and sure foreground. So this subtraction will give us the region which are doubtful or unknown. We know some regions which are sure background. We know some regions which are sure foreground. Okay. And it's the subtraction will give us the region which is unknown. We don't know that we want to basically mark in that for the segmentation, the boundaries basically are there. So we are taking that the unknown region. Okay. So this is the unknown region. This white circle, these are the unknown regions there. Okay. Outside is the background, and these are the foregrounds, the coins, and these are the unknown regions. Now we want to apply, yeah. So now we want to mark them. This basically the background we want to give a number, and the various coin objects we want to give a number. So in order to do that, we are marking for labeling. There's a method called connected components. So to connected components, we are giving this sure foreground image, right? So the sure foreground coins, it gives the number. For background also it gives the number. For background it gives the number 0, which we do not want 0 to be for the background. So we apply this connected components. So it marks the labels to background and foreground objects. Then we add 1 to it, so that the background which was 0, it becomes 1, and all other markings also, they are increased by 1. Okay. Then the unknown pixels, for that we add the value 0. Okay. So 0 values are there for the unknown pixels. So we get a marker image. In that, the unknown pixels, they have the 0 value. The backgrounds, they have the 1 value, and the foregrounds, they have the, depending on the coin number 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the objects, they are having that value. So once we have this marker, then we are using the watershed algorithm. It needs the marker. So with the help of the marker and the image, with whatever logic is for the whatever watershed algorithm, right? It basically it creates the markers, and we for right after that, basically the boundary pixels, they will be marked as -1. So if you want to make them blue, so we are changing the pixel value to 25500. Okay. So basically the blue part this. And if we display the image, the boundaries will be shown blue. Okay. So this whole thing is there. I don't know where I left. Till what point we did. Yes, I think sure foreground, this thing, distance transform we did. Yeah. Okay, let me run it again. Yeah. Then this sure foreground, yeah, subtraction, this we did over here. Okay, this we did. Okay, after this, I'm running from this point. We are getting the connected component, the markings. Okay, the markings are done for the background, foreground, and unknown regions. So this I'm running. Okay, after that, we are applying the watershed algorithm by passing the markers, and then the markers will set the boundary pixels to -1. So coloring the boundary pixels to blue, all this, then the displaying the image finally. This we are doing. Okay. So see, this is the finally image segmentation with the blue boundaries. This is image segmentation with blue boundaries. So you have all the tools in your hand to perform the complicated tasks. Okay. The algorithms, they are coded in the form of a simple functions, right? What you need is you just need to pass the whatever parameters they need, right? So this we did image segmentation. Okay. Now, okay, let me move from here. Image segmentation. After that, histogram, I'll just leave. Okay, yeah, background subtraction. Okay, now we came again to video. Okay. Okay, I hope this should be interesting for you. Okay, what we are doing again here, we are working on the video now. Okay, so we want to do the object movement tracking. We want to do object movement tracking, and for that we are using the background subtraction method. What it does is it uses the background initialization, background update. As the video is moving, background is initialized and updated. Okay, and after that what is done is it reads the data from the video image sequences one by one, so video frames. It creates the updated background model, right? And then it performs the background subtraction from the frame. So basically, what we'll see is only the moving objects. So the masking of the moving object is done through the background is subtracted from there, and we see the moving objects movement we see because we are subtracting the background from this. Okay, so for this, the implementation is so easy. We are importing this OpenCV library. After that, in order to create this background subtractor, there's a method, create background subtractor. Even multiple methods are there. One is MOG2. I don't know the full form. I do not have much time to see the details of it. But I could find at least there's one more method also for the same thing, create background subtractor KNN. Okay. So the documentation, we can see the details over there. So basically, we are creating a background subtractor object over there, right? So the first step is create a background subtractor object. Okay, done. So we created a background subtractor object by calling a method. After that, okay, let's say my video is vtest.avi. Okay, so I'm capturing this video. So I'm reading the video from a file. Okay, I'm capturing the video. I created a video capture. Then I okay, checked whether it is openable or not. Okay, I'm giving the message. Now after that, in a while loop, I am reading it frame by frame. So capture.read, I am reading the frame. Okay. Now what I am doing is background subtraction. This our background subtractor object is there. We took that object and we applied the frame to it. So from that frame, it is doing background subtraction. So when it does the background subtraction from the frame, so we get the foreground mask. Background is subtracted, so we are getting the foreground mask. Okay. So we got the foreground mask over here. When we got the foreground mask, then what we do is, okay, okay, here is some additional operation we are doing. We are creating a rectangle, and on that, the frame number we are putting it. Okay, so just ignore this part. We are putting a frame number on a rectangle over there. Yeah. So what we are doing is, okay, we are passing the frame. Oh yeah, we are passing the frame over here, rectangle, right? Then yeah, capture dot get put text, we are doing it over here. Okay. So this, yeah, the foreground mask, whatever we got over there, that foreground mask itself we can display. So I am show foreground mask, and I'm also displaying the original frame. So we can see that how the movement of the object we can track by simply calling this the create background subtractor, the background subtractor object, and on the object, just I'm applying each frame over there to get the foreground mask. Okay, let me do this. It's amazing, right? Let me do this. See, this is the original video and it is doing the background subtraction, and you are seeing the movements of the foreground objects you are continuously displaying. So you are seeing, you are able to track the movements of the foreground objects over there, right? What code we have written? We have not written any code, just 2-3 lines we have written. 2-3 important lines we have written, and it is doing for me the object this thing, right? So right, yeah, it's doing all the movements that getting captured over here, right? There's another subtractor also. I could not find much difference between them, but I saw that the I think the background noise in the first case is more, and the foreground noise in the second case is more. That's what I observed, but I did not see read the theory for this, so I'm not sure now. But I'm taking the second background subtractor, and using that I'm doing the same thing over here. This is the K-name background subtractor. See here, I see the foreground noises are there, but background noises are definitely they got reduced. So I think both will be having their advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so whichever suits to our need, that method we can take over here. Okay, so I'm just doing Q for scale for that. I'm killing this. Okay, so I hope this was useful. Okay, next I'm telling you again related to the video processing, and this is the mean shift algorithm for mean shift and cam shift algorithm, shift not shift, mean shift and cam shift algorithm for the object processing. Okay, details I cannot go to into, and even I do not know also much, but what I have understood from this is this basically in mean shift you create a window. Okay, and then once you position of the window you specify, and once you in the image on the image a position of a window you specify, then it looks for the density of the pixel. So it tries to move itself toward the largest density pixel area. Okay, so that way you are able to detect and track the objects. Okay, this is what is being done with this mean shift. So I am capturing a video file over here, the slow traffic small MP4 file, right? I'm reading the frames, I'm tracking window, I'm specifying the region of interest is getting set over there. Then after that, some termination criteria is specified. Then we are reading the image frame by frame, and we are converting it to HSV format. And then after that, based on the window or the region of interest, the areas are captured, and a mean shift algorithm is applied for that, for adjusting the window. And then this rectangle is also updated for displaying, and then we are showing the updated frame over there. Okay, so this is the rough description of this algorithm. Not many line of codes, but if I run it, basically you will see that how the mean shift algorithm is adjusting the window while tracking the objects. Okay, sorry. So see, this is moving. This is window. So it is taking itself towards the dense pixels. So now it is doing it over here. It came over here. So wherever it finds the points with the more density, there it is taking it. So this is mean shift algorithm. Similarly, something called an algorithm called cam shift is also there, right? Okay, for my thing, it didn't work much better way, but what I understood from that is also similar to mean shift, but in cam shift, the window is of here. The in mean shift, the window was of fixed size. The size was not changing. In cam shift, it adjusts the sizes to get the objects over there. And it rotates also itself in order to capture the objects. Okay. Sometimes it is successful, sometimes it is not, as per my observation. Okay, so let's run it in front of you using the cam shift algorithm. So see, this is it starts with the window. See, the window is size is changing also. Now it is okay. Now it is rotating, trying to find out the things. Okay, it changed its sizes and all those. It is trying to detect the more intensity area in some way. Okay, so this is camshift algorithm, right? So lots of experimentations can be done with these algorithms. Even these algorithms can be modified by looking into their code and modifying those algorithms as per our need as a research problem. Okay, all these are with that. Okay, then after that, one more thing. I have 15 minutes, right? So okay, let me. Yeah. Then something called optical flow algorithm. Optical flow. Again, this is the movements we are capturing over here. So the same slow traffic, this thing is there. File is there, video file is there. What is done in this optical flow is that it tries to find out some best feature points, basically the corners of the object. Then it tries to track that how those corners are moving, like how it is moving, the movements taking. So not it is not tracking all the points in the video, rather some specific points it is tracking, and those are usually the corner points. Okay, so I will just run this over here. This the main method over here is okay, video capture. We are having a window. Again, here we are having a region of interest. We are converting to HSV format over here, right? Then we are normalizing it also over there. Yeah. Then I think this calc back project and converting to the color. Then mean shift again we are applying to it. Rectangle. Oh, which one we are in? Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong file. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. This optical flow, yes. So which features to capture for that feature parameters it defines, and it uses an algorithm called Lucas Canade optical flow algorithm that it uses. Yeah, so that method is being used in order to capture the movement of the points in the video. Okay, so rather than going into the detail of it, okay, I'll just run it and show it that if you use this optical flow algorithm, then how does it work? The output you will see. So see this, it the corner points it is tracking. The corner points from the cars and all those from some corner points. It is how they are moving. That's what it is tracking over there. So certain selected points are being tracked through this optical flow algorithm. Q. Oh, my Q, it's not getting killed. Okay, let me. I have to artificially kill it. Just bear with me. I have to close this. Okay. Now next algorithm is again optical flow algorithm. Okay, but here, okay, this is called a dense optical flow algorithm. In the that in the earlier optical flow algorithm, we were capturing certain points and we were tracking only those points. But here, almost all the points they are being tracked over there, and based on the intensity, then we are tracking them. Okay. So here the output to me it's not coming very clear, but at least it is tracking the things that I'm able to see over there. So how does this dense optical flow tracking works? That I will demonstrate to you. Okay. So it is see this is the original and this is it is a tracking. So see this car is being tracked and some other things are coming over there. Not very clear, but it is optically tracking. It is based on the intensity. It is tracking the things over there. Now they are coming closer, so intensity is high, and that way. Okay. So okay, I'm just putting skip to it. Okay. So yeah. So these were some the video processing, so or video analyzing or the object tracking, right? Algorithms which we saw. Okay. Now I have got the 10 minutes, right? So in that I have to demonstrate some little bit machine learning, right? So for that, let me go for the KNN, right? What is k nearest neighbor classification? I hope many of you might know. Okay, but I do not have much time, but one KNN, I mean GIF I have. Just I'll show you that. What is KNN? See, KNN, we have the two classes of the points over there, and a new point came that we want to classify. So these brown classes and the green classes. Let me find so it finds if k is 5, it finds sets of 5 neighbors. We want to classify this black point into brown or green. So it finds the 5 k neighbors. Out of that, the majority is green. So it will change its color to green. You got? So we want the k nearest neighbor, and based on the majority voting, the class is decided, right? So I think with just this demonstration, it should be clear to you, right? So we are making it green over here, right? So this is the concept, right? Now with this concept, now I am taking you to the code over there. Nearest neighbor, yeah. So what is the code is, okay, in this, okay. Okay, we have two families of the classes or the points. So basically, yeah, we are randomly generating. Okay, yeah, responses. Okay, let's see. Here we are importing the OpenCV, NumPy, Matplotlib. We are randomly generating 25 two-dimensional points. Okay, and the pixel ranges are 0 to 100. So one class of pixels, right? We are generating 0 to 100 intensity. Yes. Okay, 25 points. Yeah, 25 points in the 0 to 100 intensity we are generating. So that is our training data. That is our training data. Okay. Then after that, what we are doing is, okay, their labels we are generating. So 0 to 2, we are generating their labels over there. Yeah, it is 25 by 1. 25 by 1. Okay. So 0 and 1, only those two values we want. Here in the earlier case, 0 to 99 we want, and here 0 to 1 we are want. So we are creating the training data, two-dimensional training data, and we are creating the labels for them. Okay. Then after that, what are we doing is, for all the training data, okay, for which the label is 0, okay, that we are separating into the red set, okay, and we are displaying that red set over there. So the points whose label is basically 0, that is basically our the red class. So that red that we are having a red point set. Similarly, we are separating a blue point set over there, okay, and through the scatter plot we are drawing that also two-dimensional, right? Then after that, a newcomer we are creating, a newcomer point, we are creating a two-dimensional point, intensity range from 0 to 99, okay. Then we are displaying even that newcomer also over there through the scatter plot. Then we are creating a k nearest neighbor object, okay. Then by calling the knn.train method, we are training it, okay. So we are training it, and then when we are applying the find nearest and we pass the newcomer, so newcomers class, basically it's a result, it gives what are the neighbors and what is its output, okay. So let me run all this. Okay, let me first run this creation of the points and the displaying of the blue and red classes. Okay, so I have to go to plot. So basically these 25 points are there. Some are blue, some are red, right? These two classes are there. Then we are creating basically a newcomer also over there, right? Yeah. Uh, yeah, newcomer we are creating over here, and we are plotting that also. So this newcomer is this, it is its position is here. Then we are applying the k nearest neighbor, and we are printing the result. It's a neighbors and the distance. Okay, over there. So what is the output? It's a classes 0. It's a classes basically the 0, the red class. Why red class? Because we gave k equal to 3, in our, we passed k equal to 3 while creating the k nearest neighbor training. Okay. Yeah. See, find nearest. In find nearest, we specified 3 as this, the number of neighbors. So 3 neighbors are given. One neighbor was blue and 2 neighbors were red. 1 is for blue and 0 is for red. 2 neighbors for red. So that the majority was this thing. So the red. So its the class is red. Okay, and the distances are given over there. Right, I have got only 5 minutes, so I'll take you to the k-means clustering. Okay, k-means clustering, and very quickly, and I had many more things also in this, but I'll skip that.
Sir, we can take the question, sir, otherwise. I think it is.
Okay, fine, sir.
As you wish, sir. As you wish. As you
Yes,
said.
we can take the question, because otherwise we'll be out of time. Okay, fine,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Then we stop here. At least they got some idea of applying.
Yes, sir. Yes.